As far as the Indian financial system is concerned, definitely the capital formation means an addition, increment in the existing stock of real capital available in the country. Capital in economics terminology does not mean money alone. It's a wider term that encompasses both physical as well as human capital. As far as physical capital is concerned, it is like machine, tools, infrastructure, raw material, etc. that leads to more production, profit, and creation of assets in future. Whereas human capital is concerned, on the other hand, it includes skill, training, education, etc., which improves the productivity of individuals and especially labor. And saving, that is most important aspect. Saving and investment are two core components of capital formation. Saving is the simplest sense, means the part of income that is not consumed. As saving is important for an individual, it is of paramount importance for the economy. So the creation of savings, mobilization of savings and conversion of saving into capital assets that lead to capital formation. One thing that need to remember here is in terms of economy, the savings that are kept at home, households, so that is usually not considered as a positive aspect in terms of economics because that is not there for any productive activity. So there are certain factors that may affect rate of capital formation in the country, like income levels of the people, institutional factors like availability, number and coverage of financial institutions, monetary and fiscal policy of the country, prevailing rate of interest, population, size of market. Some of the topics, some of the touched in the previous session. The financial system and the working on financial markets. Uh, Basically, it consists of a set of institutions, instruments, and market which brings the savers and the investors to a common institution, provide the means by which saving are translated to investment. Definitely, saving need to be translated to investment, and then it adds to the productivity and it returns back to the person who is saving. So this way, the money cycle goes on. And here, I also again re-highlighted if we put a certain amount of money in gunny bags or hide it or keep it under lock and keep as was done in yesteryears. So this is not going to add a positive value in the economy, in any of the economy. So it is assumed that saving, if it is, it should be in the banks and it should be in circulation form. So definitely on the other hand, capitalist entrepreneurs could not undertake new projects on account of that money that is saved in the gunny bags and the log in the lockers, not accessible to the system for cycling purposes. So thereby this money is not available for financial activity purposes. So basically, those capitalists bring these investors and the entrepreneurs together and translate into through the multiplier effect. The financial markets can be understood. The working of the financial market can be understood in a way that there are three, basically two components that are connected by through a financial system. The lenders, that individuals or household, they have savings, and those savings through the financial system is transferred to the borrowers in the form of loan, and borrowers repay it, and the cycle goes on. So, although in the figure that I am showing in the screen is showing unidirectional, but the cycle is bidirectional. The borrowers return it by a certain multiplier effect, and the lenders who lend their money, saving money, gets profit out of it. So basically, the financial market perform functions like to connect borrowers and lender of funds and to lead the process of price discovery or determination, to provide liquidity in the system by allocation of funds in an efficient manner, easy access of funds to the borrowers, which in turn reduces the cost of transaction. This is most important aspect because if money is not easily available, definitely it's going to cost high. And when the lending costs are high, so it's going to convert the cost of production as well. And definitely they provides a way for managing uncertainty and controlling risk. The money market has got two components. One is called as money market, another one is called as capital market. In money market, basically it's liquid form and capital form in the capital market. It is technically not sort of visible. The money market is a market for short-term financial assets and assets which are close substitutes of money. Definitely. So additional term that is added, close substitutes of money. Then short-term implies time period for less than 1 year, and close substitutes of money refer to those financial assets or instruments that can be converted to money with minimum or no transaction cost and without loss of in value. The major participants in the money market are scheduled commercial banks, excluding RRBs, cooperative banks, excluding land development banks, and primary dealers. So the broad objectives include to provide equilibrating mechanism between short-term surpluses and deficiency, maintaining liquidity in the system, providing access to short-term funds to the borrowers at minimum realistic cost. The minimum realistic cost is definitely a determining factor. To enable the central bank of the country to ensure interventions to influence and regulate liquidity in the economy. Then there are certain, as I mentioned, there are certain money, certain instruments that we can consider as. So one is call market or notice market, then commercial paper market, then treasury bills or T-bills, commercial bill markets, then certificate of deposits, that's called CDs, then money market mutual fund. So these are certain instruments that works in the money market. Like call market is basically called as money at call. The maturity period varies from 1 day to 14 days. The major players in the call markets are banks and private dealers. The interest rate payable on call loans is known as call rate. Then there are commercial papers, short-term unsecured instruments issued by companies to raise short-term debts. They are issued in the form of promissory notes, and in India, they were introduced in 1990. Although in the foreign countries, they were there well before that time. Large corporations, primary dealers, and financial institutions that we call as FI are authorized to issue CPs, and the maturity duration of CP is minimum of 7 days and maximum up to 1 year from the date of issue. Whereas compared to call market, it is 7 days to 1 day to 14 days. Then treasury bills, it is an instrument issued by the government, and these are the form of bill that does not arise from any genuine transaction costs. They are kind of promissory notes issued by the RBI. And the interesting thing about this is they are of 91 days, 180 days, and 364 days. And the interesting thing about that is there is no interest rate in that. There is a sort of discount, if you say so. So, for example, if there is a rupees 200 T-bill, so it will be issued at a discounted price of suppose 198 rupees. So the purchaser will purchase it or buy it at 198 rupees. On the maturity, he will receive 200 rupees. So indirectly benefit is there. Then commercial bill markets. Commercial bill originate due to original trade transactions. They are of many types of bills like trade bills, commercial bills, inland bills, foreign bills, indigenous bills, and other. And rediscounting of bills is an important segment of bill market. Commercial banks often use such facilities. Certificate of deposit (CDs) market. These are the negotiable instruments in the money market, and they are issued against funds deposited in the bank or other financial institution. Definitely, so these are against something for a fixed period at a specific rate of interest. Scheduled commercial banks, except RRBs, and local area bank, and selected all India FIs can issue CDs in a minimum amount of 1 lakh or multiple of it. The maturity period of CD is minimum 7 days and maximum up to 1 year. Then there is another interesting aspect, that is money market mutual funds, triple MFS. So we all listen to common advertisement, mutual fund, etc. like that. So this is the same segment. In this segment, mutual fund investment scheme mostly run by asset management companies. Money is collected from a large number of investors, basically a small segment. So small investors, and as you see, the mostly beneficiaries are small investors like the salary class who park their funds in triple MFs and can gain better returns, and they are all governed by SEBI regulations. As far as the structure of money market in Indian concerns, it is divided into two parts. One is organized, another one is unorganized. The organized one is under regulation by RBI and commercial banks, whereas the unorganized is through indigenous banks, non-banking companies, and money lenders. So now it's time to something learn about something, explore about the bank or Indian banking system. So as far as the definition of the bank is concerned, according to Banking Regulation Act 1949, a banking company is a company that transacts the business of banking in India, and banking means accepting deposit of money from the public for the purpose of lending or investment. However, with the promise of repayment of the demand by the depositor with a facility of withdrawal by check, draft, order, or otherwise. We all have witnessed during the recent year, the function of bank has been diversified. So now they do a lot, variety of works. They are modernized, and all this happened post modernization, liberalization era, and the participation of the foreign banks and the aggressive marketing practices or banking practices by the private sector banks. So as far as the structure of the bank is concerned, the topmost comes the RBI, who acts as the bank of the bankers bank. So it's a government bank, you will say so, although in autonomous in nature. So then subsequently scheduled commercial banks, and the scheduled commercial banks are divided into two parts: scheduled commercial banks and scheduled cooperative banks. Scheduled commercial banks are further divided into public sector bank, private sector bank, foreign banks, and regional rural banks. The public sector banks may be Nationalized Bank and State Bank of India and its associates, whereas private sector banks are old private sector banks and new private sector bank. You can see the public sector bank is divided into two parts: Nationalized Bank and State Bank of India and its associate. So there is a margin difference in terms of government role in it. As well as you can see the State Bank of India or SBI and its associate covers around 25% of Indian banking system, and they have got a huge coverage across the India. As far as the RBI is concerned, it is an apex bank of the country and acts as a regulator of the financial and monetary system in the country. It was established after the recommendation of Hilton Young Commission, and it acts as a banker to the central government by the Reserve Bank of India in 1934, and it began its operation from April 1935 as a private shareholder bank with the paid-up capital of rupees 5 crore, and in 1949 RBI was nationalized. And it has got certain functions, like it is a note issuing authority, and it has a monopoly over note issuing in India over other than 1 rupee notes, coins and coins of smaller denominations. Then banker to the banks. So you can understand with the bankers to the bank meaning means it can add sort of do some banking facility to the banks. Then banker of the government and debt manager, banking sector regulator. So this is the most important aspect because it regulates various aspects. The foreign exchange manager, maintaining financial stability in the system by regulating certain parameters. It also plays developmental role and a regulator of the monetary policy. As far as the scheduled bank is concerned, we have gone through in the very first slide in this segment. So there are various components like public sector banks. They are those banks which has more than 50% share held by the government of India. So these are the major banks in India in terms of their reach, rural reach. And as at present, as per 2021 data, there are 12 PSBs, public sector banks, namely SBI, Bank of Baroda, Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, Punjab and Sind Bank, Indian Bank, UCO Bank, Bank of Maharashtra, Central Bank of India, Canara Bank, and Union Bank of India. Whereas SBI and its associates are concerned, it's the biggest commercial bank in the country. Nearly 25% market is covered, so it's a huge presence over there. And interestingly, it's at present SBI is a Fortune 500 company and is having its headquarters at Mumbai. As far as private sector bank is concerned, as you can recall from the very in the previous slide, there are two types: new private sector bank and old private sector bank. And as far as currently there are 12 in number as per April 21 data. As far as foreign bank is concerned, so there are around 46 foreign banks. They have got their headquarters outside country. They need to run under the rules and regulations of the country. like Bank of America, Bank of Ceylon, National Australia Bank, BNP Paribas Bank, etc. Then there are regional rural banks. They has got good number of presence. They are currently 43 in number. Then there are scheduled cooperative banks. There are 23 scheduled state cooperative banks and 53 scheduled urban cooperative banks. In the banking system, there are two major committees that we call as Narsimhan Committee that presented their report for state banking reforms. They're called as Narsimhan Committee first, 1991, and Narsimhan Committee 1998 too. So they gave reasonable recommendation for liberalization of the banking system, and definitely it helped in the strengthening of the banking system and face the global challenges. As well as but earlier we discussed about the money market. The second is the capital market. Capital market itself is a very complex market, and it gives very sort of backbone for the growth of the economy. It comprises of two markets: primary market and secondary market. The primary and secondary market. The primary market is also known as new issue market name, where the issuer of the security share and bonds sell the new securities to the investor directly without any intermediaries. Wherever, whenever the securities are offered for sale for the first time by the companies, they are called as initial public offering (IPOs). And the secondary market is also known as stock market. The secondary market can be either an auction market or over-the-counter market. So in the auction market, trading of securities is done through the stock exchange. You have heard about BSE and NSEs. The over-the-counter trading is conducted without using the platform of a stock exchange. It does not have any physical location, and trading is done electronically. Then there are certain financial instruments, as we discussed in the money market. In the capital market, there are instruments as well: shares, bonds. So share is a sort of issuing a partnership or a part in the company. Companies issue shares based on the company reputation, its valuation. The investors put their money into it. There may be certain premium on it from the actual value, and it appears to be a sort of investment or a return related issue. Then bonds are issued by, at times it are issued by the companies. So it is something uh, which are issued by a assurance that at the rate this much of return will be issued. So bonds are also sort of money attracting mechanism by the from the investors. And there is a debenture. Debenture is also a type of debt instruments which is issued by the company for raising fund, but they are not secured by physical assets or collateral securities. So an investor buys debentures based on the reputation and the creditworthiness of the issuer. The interest rate on debenture is higher than the bonds, so that's the attracting point. Then Sensex, also known as sensitivity index, or S&P BSE Sensex index, is a benchmark index of Bombay Stock Exchange. It's a market weights stock of 30 companies, 30 major companies are listed. Then there is a gilt edge market. The gilt edge market refers to the market for the government, which are government securities, and is backed by the RBI. And the government securities are called gilt edged, means of the best quality because they are highly liquid and risk free. Then on the liquid, then capital market intermediaries. So there are certain large number of intermediaries that work in the capital market, like merchant bankers, underwriters, portfolio managing services, stockbrokers, regulator of the stock market, like SEBI. So the like you can see underwriter are someone who assures that we will buy this share at this price if it is not bought uh, by the investors. So that's the role of underwriters. Portfolio manager, they definitely manage the investment profile or so. Stockbroker may be individual, a company, or a group of person who acts as a broker between the shareholder and the prospective investor. Then definitely there must be regulators who plays that role. So with this, let's move to the unit number 6. It is industrial policy framework. We all remember very prominently that India got freedom in 1947, and after 1947, it was a urgency and urgent need to look for certain policies and mechanisms with which we can devise the progressive growth of the country at the pace of the global requirement, and to meet the challenges, something like that. So initially, policy was conceived, and it's called as Industrial Policy Resolution of 1948, and that outlined and defined the role of state in industry development, both as an entrepreneur and authority, for the stringent framework and better implementation of the industrial policy, enactment of Industries Development and Regulation Act 1951, referred to as IDR Act, followed. This was also followed by Union government to direct investment into preferred area of industrial activity through the mechanism of licensing and keeping abreast with national development objectives. To fast track industrialization and to place India among global competitors, it was imperative to achieve sustainable growth, optimum utilization of resources, and growth in production with a focus on best possible utilization of human resources and international competitiveness. To achieve sustainable growth, and policy explored prospects to deregulate than Indian industry while easing restrictions. Since 1991, we all recall it correctly. Since 1991, economic reforms envisioned new and substantial role of private entities. In view of this, the policy has been progressively liberalized over the years, and we will be looking at the same in the coming sections. You can also connect to this. Over the period of time, there is a progressive role of private players, progressive role of entrepreneurs, as well as the progressive role of foreign investors in various sections. Government over the period of time liberalized their segments, various sectors, for the investment purpose. Initially, when we go through various sections in this unit, we will be able to see that initially there was restrictions. There was focused permissions for a specific segment. Government has some certain priorities. So now that priorities have diversified, because initially we need to set up certain basic structures, basic parameters. Maybe health may be our priority, maybe infrastructure may be our priority. Maybe we need to explore mining resources for the economic growth purposes. We need to go for the higher rate of production to maintain global competitiveness, to meet our requirement, indigenous requirement in various aspects. So to consider all those aspects, the industrial policy framework was designed, and on the basis of progressive consideration, it was realigned, reoriented, and it kept on changing accordingly from time to time. And definitely, we are seeing the concept of 5-year plans is similarly. So the 5-year plan focused a specific objective. The policy and planning for that respective 5-year plan is with reference to all those requirements, and they work in that direction. You can see there is a concept of there is an important concept that is called Industrial Policy Resolution (IPR) 1956, and it has got a number of changes has taken place during this time. So it emphasizes on a fast track expansion of heavy machine industry to lay the groundwork for capital good industry, involve private sector and make them co-partners, expand heavy industries based in the public sector, promote and enhance growth of cottage and small scale industry by establishing large cooperative sectors. I am happy to recall it in the recession period in the past decade in Europe. So the only country in the European Union that was showing a positive sign in their economy was Germany, because of their strong base in the small scale industry in the data sector. So it's a policy of the country that helps them in ease of and sustaining all situations. We have the example in the recent corona pandemic. It's good to recall correctly. Although we have got almost 70% or 80% population dependent on the agricultural activities. So in the event of failure of or setback to the tourism industry, setback to the industrial activities, because all those activities are stopped, our agricultural activity was not stopped. It was fortunately it was untouched, remain untouched, broadly remain untouched from the corona pandemic. So that activity facilitate sustenance of the large population. So I was talking about IPR 1956. It has got certain schedules. There are major schedules that helped in shaping the policy for that time. The Schedule A, it's barred the industry for which permissions had already been given 17 new industries to be set up by the state. Then Schedule B, private sector industries 12 in number to be set up with an aim to supplement the effort of the state. Then Schedule C, it gives the idea of developmental initiative was left entirely to the private sector, except for the 29 above segments. So despite differences, it was always left open to the state to undertake industrial production in any of the areas, keeping the national interest in the mind. Then there is a concept of industrial licensing. So industrial licensing is a concept where industry receives license from the government, and certain permissions are given, certain conditions are mentioned, and information is retrieved by the government, so that they are remaining updated exactly what's going on, uh, how they're going on, when they're going to start their capacity, the production, where they're going to start their production, and how it can be benefited to the, the country as well. Then there are certain different acts also in addition to this that are related to this. That one is Industries Development and Regulation Act, IDR 1951, Monopolies and Restrictive Trade Practices Act 1959, and Foreign Exchange Regulation Act FARA 1973, and there are certain modifications in the form of FARA also. Then, when we see the various phases in the policy changes, that can be considered as a phases of liberalization. So, by mid 1970s onwards, during 1970s or mid 1970s, advancements and experimentations within internal trade witnessed liberalization. This decade marked liberation from controls, including an increase in license capacities and ease of in licensing restrictions. Licensing policy underwent constant change on complex features during 1970s and 1980s. By mid 1980s, to keep check on fiscal, monetary, and trade policies, industrial policy was reoriented and gained a push after the mid 1980s. Accelerated growth and an improvement in domestic resources was the primary aim for this momentum. And considering with the need for an accelerated growth, to meet the accelerated growth, expansions were made in the form of an improvement in imports meant improvements in production, and hence import was given attention. Amplified exports to pay for increased imports and avoid risk of heavy debt burden, a trait associated with large-scale commercial borrowings. Then progress in terms of sharpening the competitive edge of exportable goods and revision in industrial trade and fiscal policy to increase benefit of exportable goods. Then there is a domestic resource condition and need to improve. Definitely, there was an urgent need felt to improve the condition of domestic resources, and these are few reasons listed for this regard. Government budget were no longer enough sources of investment and finances, so any reduction in defense spending was not an option for the government. Subsidies can reduce only at a slow pace to avoid any major social and political hitches. And above all, now the only way to raise additional funds was to make tax system more comprehensive and ensure that public sector enterprises generate more and more resources. The above two proposals were immensely helpful in establishing the role of market and helping expand the concept like broadbanding, minimum economic capacity, and delicensing. Moving further, keeping in mind the period beginning with 1985 witnessed development of rule-based industrial policies. This included tax and tariff-based interventions and dual pricing, making direct price output of the capacity control obstacle. Well, in 1991, we witnessed new industrial policy that was in accordance with the liberalization policy. So it gives us, it gives required immediate consideration, and government responded with a suitable set of macroeconomic policies along with new industrial policy. is essentially based on the new classical paradigm, which was designed by to push growth and help restore macroeconomic and financial stability. And new zero policy structure and new objectives gave birth to a revised policy. New industrial policy was announced on July 24th, 1991. And the principal objective of the new industrial policy was to amalgamate the assets and advances gained during the 4 decades of economic planning in 1951 to 1991 and ensure that weakness, majority low productivity, and high production costs are paid close attention. New policy focused on improving and maintaining a sustained growth in industrial productivity and ample employment opportunities. A major area of attention was to achieve international competitiveness. As we see in the previous slide, there was more focus on adding edge to the export goods. If our export goods are of high quality, as well as we are fighting on the price as well, so definitely we are able to get the best out of it. So it was also emphasized that these objectives will keep a check on sustainability concerns, service protection of environment and efficient use of available resources. Then there was certain alteration in the policies in the form of industry licensing policy. The new wave industry license was eliminated for all projects excluding some industries. These industries were primarily those industries which were of security and strategic concern, involved in the production of hazardous substance leading to the environmental damage and destruction. Industries especially cited to procure industrial licensing are distilleries and alcoholic drink beverages, defense equipment, electronic, aerospace and defense aircraft, warships, aerospace substitutes, industrial explosives, including detonating fuses, safety fuses, gunpowder, nitrocellulose and matches, tobacco products. And there were 3 more industry groups exclusively reserved for the public sector. These were recognized due to security and strategic concern. One is generation of atomic energy. Second is substances notified by the Department of Atomic Energy, and railways, private funds permissible to limited amount. There was no need for permission and approvals from the central government for any other industry except for ones mentioned above. However, a specific find locations of industry based on the level of pollution and distance from the city's minimum threshold of population. There's another concept that is that we can also consider is there is a concept of environment impact assessment. So depending upon the size of industry, there was a condition to have environment impact assessment done for that industry, and based on those clearance, industries could be set up and run accordingly. Then second point is foreign investment. So definitely we are depending on the foreign investment, and foreign investment is a good source. And foreign investment can only come if the foreign investor FII is having confidence in your economy, confidence in your structure, in the infrastructure, and the confidence that they will get their money returned, sort of some assurance. So there were certain industries that were classified into groups, and automatic approval is available up to 100% in specified industries. Companies which are involved in export of products, majority fund equity holding of up to 51% will be allowed for an easy access to international market. For the purpose of negotiations and international firms and for approval of direct foreign investment, a foreign investment promotion board was constituted. As far as the next point is concerned, foreign technology agreements, we all understand that there is a very great importance of technology, new and new technology. And technology can be anywhere, and it may be of use to anyone. So if we are able to get the advanced technology from a foreign country and able to employ in our country, so definitely it may add to the productivity, and it may boost the economic growth. So for foreign technology agreements in high priority industries, atomic permission will be given by on a lump sum payment of around US dollar 2 million, 5% royalty for domestic sales and 9% for exports. This was subject to total payment of 8% of sales over the 10-year period for a date of agreement or 7 years from the commencement of production. So the IPP related policies were there. Then public sector. So there are certain improvements in the public sector, including the cases that can be referred for the bad shape or bad loans. Cases could be referred to the Board of Industrial Financial Reconstruction purposes. Then MRTP Act. So MRT Act was allowed more freedom in terms of removing pre-entry restrictions, prior approvals from the government for establishing a new undertaking while getting involved in homologation, etc. So definitely this policy is suitable for export policy. Earlier, some suitable export policy was missing, and limitations were there. So to counter this, definitely this policy, this new industrial policy gives some advantages. Then there are certain state-related liberalization. So, like states like Karnataka, it allowed commercial tech-related services provided online. So, in Andhra, they provide single window system setup industry within 21 days. Spot registration under professional tax registration of shops and establishment approval self-certification. Incentives for subsidization of GST, stamp duty, etc. And setting up a skill development center. And in Karnataka, we can see exemption is stamp duty, interest-free loans, etc. As far as the Kerala, Puducherry, Tamil Nadu, and Telangana is concerned, they give certain freedom to the industry so that they can set up most of those activities like Kerala, setting up industrial development zones, incentives only to new entrepreneurs, and relocation of industry to mitigate rising pollution, eco-friendly transportation routes, allotting of land through government portals, encouragement of women entrepreneurs, and employing skilled laborers. So skill development is very much considered. As far as Telangana is concerned, strengthening of existing single window clearance system, reimbursement of 50% net VAT, CST or SGST, women-owned enterprises additional 10% investment subsidy, and 25% subsidy on specific cleaner production measures. So there are certain other important policies that are further strengthened, like small scale industry, improvement in the quality, and so on. Then there is a concept of competition policy. So it apply for the procuration of licenses which restrain investment, restriction to enter for new enterprises. Then there are restrictions on acquisition of economic control through MRTP, widespread monopolies due to reservation of public sector and other industries. Small scale industries were under constraint of product reservations, high tariffs, and other policy related intervention. So, for a healthy competitive environment and to ensure efficient production, two factors were recognized as vitally important. One was to allow Indian players become independent and competitive globally, and second was to create an accessible atmosphere in the domestic market. This was introduced to help increase competitive edge of Indian players and boost competitive strength of the Indian economy. So there is another concept that is called special economic zones. As per the Special Economic Zone Act 2006, it emphasized on development of a specific area for promoting manufacturing and exports, and the main incentives that were given: duty-free import and capital goods, raw materials, consumables, and spares, tax exemption on export profit for the first 5 years, exemption from minimum alternate tax MAT, goods purchased from the domestic tariff rate (DATA) are exempt from sales and service tax, exemption from stamp duty, registration fee and electricity duty, no tax on income from dividends and long-term capital gain tax, 100% FDI allowed for developers. Now move to the last unit for today's session, that is agri-business environment. Since independence, we all recollect correctly that over 70% population initially is dependent on the rural life, or they are directly having their living from the rural areas. So there was a major concern that we need to look for progress, and it can so that it can increase crop production, productivity, diversification, and technological advancement or developments were required to meet the requirement of large population. And during the recent past years, or during the post-independence era, a couple of bad weathers we have faced. So that was the litmus test time for the agriculture industry. So as you can see during the initial year, there were more hiccups and growth stagnated. Since 1960s, growth rate started moving up and gained momentum, especially during the mid 1980s, but started losing the pace in 1990s, and this was tilted towards food grain to address the issue of food security. In recent years, those dependent on agriculture as a key source of livelihood, it is turning unsustainable in terms of economic and social consequences. Majorly a green crisis with a sweeping migration to the cities and farmer suicide, etc. So this casts doubt on the future growth prospects of the Indian economy, which is majorly, we all know, dependent on the agriculture sector. Besides, our import needs are well established. When it comes to essential food products such as pulses and edibles, we are purely dependent on the domestic market. And as far as the trends in agriculture production, sales, and exports are concerned, so we have reasonably promising data in various sectors. You can see the finished goods. You can see in the oils segment, various segment. Definitely, we are progressing in the aquaculture. We are definitely globally competing with top three slots. Uh, but still the competition is very high, and definitely we need to match the pace at the global market. And there are new challenges in terms of quality control. You can see there is a concept of usage of pesticides, high pesticides, and those pesticides laden products are rejected from the developed countries. So the price that was fetched for the good quality pesticide-free product is not easy to catch. It's not easy to maintain. So now the new fields are created, new concepts are created. So our conventional farming is not sustaining that one. In terms of the fact that the traditional farming involves a good number of pesticides, uses a good number of pesticides, and those pesticides are easily detected by the modern advanced tools, and definitely it affects the export potential of our agricultural products. Then there is a constant evolution of farm policies in India. You can consider as a phase wise. During 1947 to 1965 is a phase when there was a consideration for Jamidari Involvement Act or Jamidari Evolution Act 1950s. There was a land reorganization, land distribution was properly, just in a just manner. Equal distribution was considered. Then 1965 to 1980, you can consider the introduction of high yielding varieties in various segments, including wheat and rice. Adopted improved pesticides, fertilizers, irrigation methods were improved. Then 1980 to 91, focus was on improving crop production during the Green Revolution, so that corresponding years focused on expansion in the use of green revolution technologies to other crops and regions. Well, as agricultural output rose, production began to diversify into high value commodities such as fish, poultry, milk, fruits, and vegetables. 91 onwards, the agricultural reforms lacked the general economic reforms, but we can see that in 1991 there was a new industrial policy which focused on the industrialization aspect, which looked for various aspects. But somehow it seems at that time this agriculture sector was not given that much of weightage. So a major step was transition from public distribution system to a targeted distribution, public distribution system in 1977, aimed to ensure that improvised people get access to food at subsidized prices. In July 2000, the government of India announced the country's first ever national agriculture policy. This policy aimed at achieving growth rate more than 4% per annum in the agriculture sector. The objective of this policy was to create employment opportunities for the rural population, accelerate the growth of agro businesses, explore and realizes the massive untapped growth potential of Indian agriculture, promote better standard of living in rural population, discourage relocation from rural to urban population, and to overcome the trials arising due to economic reforms in 1991. Then there are certain marketing policies. The national policy for farmers approved by the government in 2007 recognized a need to emphasize on increasing farmers' income along with production. The 5-year plans also recommended policy initiative to enhance the working of the agriculture sector. The National Food Security Act (NAFSA) was enacted on 12th September 2013 with the objective to provide for food and nutritional safety for guaranteeing access to a good amount of quality food at affordable prices. Then there is a Essential Commodity Acts, there is a Agriculture Produce Market Regulation Acts, and there is a concept of minimum support price. Well, in order to maintain the concept of or manage the concept of Essential Commodity Acts and Agriculture Produce Market Regulation Act, the central government set a minimum support price for 24 crops every year, and the FCI and several state level agencies working in support of the FCI are required to procure the specified commodities from market from farmers at a notified prices, that is MSP. But this mechanism operates effectively only for a few commodities, as I mentioned, 24 crops, primarily for wheat, rice, and cotton, uh, and that too only in few states. Then, in considering all the problem in the situation in 2020, three bills were introduced by the government with the assent from the Honorable President of India, Shri Ramnath Kovindji. So, one is Farmers Produce for Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020. This act permits farmers to sell their produce outside the APMC regulated mandi, but it does not abolish them. It aims to provide lucrative prices to farmers via alternative trade channels. It also prohibits states government from imposing any tax on the trade of produce outside the mandis. Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price Assurance Farm Services Act. It was basically contract farming, legalizing of the same. Then Essential Commodities Amendment Act. The amended act also states that the government will impose stock limits on essential commodities only when the price is at least 100% for the horticulture products and 50% for the non-perishable agricultural products. So these kind of options were given. Then in the agriculture sector, there are certain players that play in interchangeable way. We can say merchant, middleman, wholesaler, retailers, village merchants, agent middleman, commission agent, brokers, speculative middleman, processors, facilitative middlemen and transporters. So all those play directly or indirectly in their interrelationship, make it a complex, and ultimately at the loser end it's a farmer. The agricultural marketing is definitely a very important aspect, and it plays a vital role, assumed to be playing a vital role for the targeting that 70% population. And a shift from traditional modern agricultural system has been a challenge, and marketing has been a big experiment in the entire process. But the role of marketing remains utmost important. The importance of agricultural marketing is revealed through certain points. One, optimization of resources, use and output management, increase in farmer income, everybody's talking about, widening of markets, diversification is required, growth on agro-based industries, and price signals, what can be the speculative price in the coming year that need to be considered. Adoption and spread of new technology. Here we can see that there is an adoption of new technology in the form of usage of drones in the pesticide spray and drip irrigation technology, employment creation. With the diversification, with the addition of new crops in this segment, definitely there is an addition of employment and on-site addition to the national income, and this directly indirectly help in the improvement of living of the rural youth. So if living standards are improved and income is improved, definitely agriculture sector or agri-based environment is definitely positive and it's going to support the Indian economy. So with this, I wish to conclude today's session. Namaskar.